In 1700, India contributed to nearly 22.5% of the world's GDP. At that time, Britain, France, and Germany together, their combined contribution to world GDP was 11%. But by the time the British left India in 1947, India's contribution to the world GDP had fallen to just 4%. When I read this figure, I got really upset. And when I get upset, I do two things. I drink bourbon and I read books to calm me down. So I read a ton of books and scholarly papers on Google Scholar. And today I'm going to show you 5 photos that really illustrate how the British ruined India. The 5th one is the worst one of all and is something that you will find every Indian, no matter who they are, dealing with even today. So let's get started. The first picture is of this amazing, beautiful florin print. It is called the Calico Cotton. Now, the Calico Cotton was made by Indian textile workers, and it's this beautiful fabric that has a really involved manufacturing process. And at the time, it was the rage in England and France. The British lady said things like,
"Nice print, Governor."
And the French lady said things like, well, I don't know, I don't speak French. But the point is, Indians ruled the world when it came to textiles. And then when the British came, they did two things. They increased the tariffs on Indian cotton to 70%. And they reduced the tariffs on British cotton entering India to 0%. So this effectively destroyed the Indian textile industry, and millions of textile workers couldn't pursue their living anymore. And India, which was a powerhouse in the world textile industry, was effectively reduced to an exporter of raw material cotton. Now, what happened to all these textile workers? They were forced off the land. And the thing with land is there's only so much of it. And then there were millions of farmers. Now you have all these textile workers coming on. Which brings me to the second picture. In the 1900s, over 25 million people died of famine in India under British rule. 25 million is a lot of people. Even in World War I, 17 million people had died. So this is all of World War I plus a lot more. Now the British put these exorbitant taxes on Indian people. We have instances of farmers who were put in sunburned cages because they couldn't pay their taxes, and even folk who had to sell their children to make this tax payment. So what happened to all this tax revenue? Didn't the British spend a little of it to, feeding the people and stuff? No. 64% of the taxes in India were collected to maintain the British troops. Now, historians like Neil Ferguson say that the British collected taxes and gave India this amazing rail network. Which brings me to the third point. This is a picture of that Indian railway map under British rule. You'll notice one thing about it right away. It is used to connect places that are rich in raw materials, mines and stuff to the ports so they can be exported. That's all the British use the railways for. In fact, in 1876, there was a famine in Madras. Over 8 million people in that region alone died due to the famine. That, coincidentally, was also the same year where the British exported 320,000 tons of wheat outside the country. To date, it remains the record for wheat transported under British rule out of India. But what's that you say? You're saying out of India? Surely there wasn't an India before the British rule. And the British gave India this national identity, which is something we should all be thankful for. Well, that's just not true. If you look at Indian history, Ashoka had united the Indian subcontinent all the way from Afghanistan to Bengal. The Guptas too, like emperors like Samudragupta, who had united all of India. We see this play out again and again and again during Indian history. We have the Mughals, then we have the Maratha Empire, and we have these amazing stories of mythology that flowed from the north, came to the south, inspired movements like the Bhakti movement. So India was a mental concept well before the British came. And the British didn't give India a national identity. All they did was rob India of its national pride. Which brings me to the 5th point, the one that I said that every Indian deals with, no matter even today. This is a picture from Punch magazine. It is called An Ode to the British Foot. It basically says that it's the British foot where they kicked the natives and kept them in line. There were scores of people who died in India as a result of this British foot, and all the British military officers who possessed this foot were led away, and the cause of death was diagnosed as something like malaria or something. So there's this period during British rule where the number of deaths due to malaria went up sharply. And I think this is the worst thing that the British Empire did to India. They robbed Indians of a sense of pride. Now, this is a country that gave the world great religions like Buddhism and Jainism. It invented many of the things in modern astronomy. It invented great concepts in math, all the way from zero to calculus, which was invented in India 300 years before Newton. An episode on the Kerala School of Mathematics is going to be coming up. So please subscribe for the channel to get a view of that episode. And this is something you'll see in many Indians even today. It's reducing over the years as India makes strides, but there is that kernel of inferiority that just is dormant. And thankfully, the sense of inferiority has reduced over the years, but there still exists. So to historians like Neil Ferguson, who say that the empire was great and gave great things to India, I politely say, I must disagree. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please consider subscribing for this channel. We are going to take a look into many facets of world history. Have a great week and enjoy the next 7 days that lie ahead. Bye.